Moon's tropical storm now
Our flight
continues.
Randy, can we turn that off a minute, please? A thought. Kaulana Napua, the song written about the annexation of Hawaii and the imprisonment of our late Queen Liliuokalani. Okay? For almost 100 years now has brought feelings of sadness and tears to the Hawaiian people. Larry Kimura and myself discussed this song for months last year and have decided that it is time to put a positive note to it, because the song was not written in words of tears, but in words of strength and dignity. You know what I mean?
Right. I see in his introduction, Larry says, "E pai pai ho ia kapuhaku, I pa'amaila ke kahua hale ho," which means let's put the rocks together again, build a strong foundation for a new house, and move on.
I see. That's why the strong guitar work, the voices, and the fast meter.
Exactly, Randy. Exactly. It's time for us to be positive.
Awe na li'e o ke au I hala e nāna mai a mākou nā pula pula o nei au e holo nei e ala mai kākou e nā kini nā mamo ka aina aloha aloha wale ia aina ko kākou kahua aue ka ili e ka ho'opuehu ia nei e pai pai hou ia ka pohaku I pa'a maila ke kahua hale hou no kākou e nā pua e ho'olulu ai e ala e ka I ka mahi ka palena I mua aloa a ka lei o ka lana kila
Papua o Hawaii Upa ama hope o ka aina Hiki mai ka elele o ka loko ino Pala pala anu me ka pākaha Pane mai Hawaii I moku o ke ave Kokua nā honoa o ki ilani Kako o mai kaua I o mano Auku me ke oni o kaku I hela Pepa o ka enemi Hui haina kua e hewa Kua e hewa I ka pono sihila a o ke kanaka Aole mako wa I mina mina Aole, 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 hu I ka pūtala o ke au puni Lava mako I ka pohaku I ka pohaku I ka ai ka maha o ka aina Mahope mako o lili ulani Mahope, 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 tu Aloha e ka pono o ka aina Aina ia mai ana ka puana Aina ia mai O ka poe I aloha I ka aina Kaulana nā pua, kaulana nā pua, kaulana nā pua e Kaulana nā pua, kaulana nā pua, kaulana nā pua e Kaulana nā pua, kaulana nā pua, kaulana nā pua e
Tropical storm warnings are all but over for this evening. And speaking of tropical storms, let's listen to a cut from Peter Moon's album of the same name. This is Slack Key Shuffle.
War
war crimes, international human rights violations, pillaging, fraud, corruption. Na mea a pau e ho eha ya kako. Welcome. Aloha e Kauai. Ke ali'i o Mo'ikeha. Aloha e Oahu. Ke ali'i o Kuali'i. Aloha e Maui. Maui nui a Kama. Aloha e Hawaii o ke Po'o Kalani. The mana olelo for today is Koho Balota. When you look up the word Koho, it translates to guess, election, choice, selection, interpretation, to choose, select, bid, guess, estimate, anticipate, decide on, pick, nominate, vote, elect. This is our election season, kako. If you do vote, vote for Ikaika Marzo for mayor, or else we're going to see some arrests on Mauna Kea if Mitch Roth becomes the mayor. Balota, to count ballots, election teller. So when I look up Koho Balota in the Nupepa, Hawaii, and specifically we're looking at July 17th, 1863 in Kanupepa, Ku'oko'a. There's an article that is titled He Hui Koho Balota, and it says, E Kanupepa Ku'oko'a e, aloha e, ua ike au kou helu I wakalua kumakahi, buke e lua, I ka ha'i o lelo o JJK kahula nui o ko hala a kau nei. No ke po'o e kaua ela maluna he hui Koho Balota. He nui no na mana'o ana I ha'i ai maia kumu mana'o, a ka no ka pili ana I ho'i no mauli a me ka aki. Ua kali no au I ka pane aku malaila I loko o ka Nupepa. So, in this hui Koho Balota, in this hui of elections, the elections office, all the way in 1863 during the Hawaiian Kingdom, we were choosing representatives for the legislature to represent our different districts and our islands. So democracy was alive and well in the Hawaiian Kingdom, and we practiced electing our representatives. So therefore, our mana olelo for the day is Koho Balota. So we got some exciting international news. We're going out all the way across the Pacific Ocean to see our some of us, our relatives. You know, 1 out of every 3 Hawaiians have some Chinese. So we're gonna go to the South China Sea to check out Manila and Beijing. And we're going to have a little history lesson with that lesson. And then we're going to travel out to Hong Kong because there's some actions out there, some police protests. And then we're going to ho'i mai to the Pacific, roundabout to Bougainville, New Caledonia. And, you know, you got to really listen to the New Caledonia government and what they're doing to stop foreigners from buying all of their lands. It's amazing. Hawaii should really follow what they're doing. And then we're going to head all the way back to yours truly, your favorite, Tulsi Gabbard. And she has some, she made some headlines this week. And then after that, we're going to head all the way to your favorite desecrated piece of land on Hawaii Island, Pohaku Loa Training Area. And then after that, we're going to head down to the wrongful death lawsuit that all of you who have family members who died in the veterans' homes, you guys got to listen to this one. And then we're going to close off with some South Pacific athletics. And then we're going to head home with our Hawaiian Kingdom violator and champion for the week. So, without any further ado, we're going to have our weather section with the Moonlight Lady. Aloha, Moonlight Lady, you there?
Follow mine. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen? Aloha. Can you see my screen? Oh my gosh. Okay. Follow mine. Aloha mai ako. O wau o haunani mia tātou o ka Moonlight Lady me ka hoana o au ka mahina. O ka poa no ki ia o ka la e kolu o ka kopa I ka makahiki e lua kaukani e wakalua. O mahea lani ke ia pomahina ma ka malama o Ikua I ke ia manawa. No laila, ke ia pomahina o mahea lani ua haku I nehi nei I ka ahi a laila e nā po'o I ke ia kakahiaka I wakalua kumawalu menuke I hala ka hola or I koikani ka hola e ono e walu. No laila hui kau ke kahi po'e ina ike I ka kaulana mahina a ole ale manaka pomahina no ka mea I ke ia la ka la e kolu o ka kopa o kulu ka pomahina no ka mea ka haku ana o ka pomahina o kulu I ke ia ahi I ka hola 2.5 I koikani ka hola e 8. A laila e nā po'o ke ia pomahina hapa lua ka hola e 8 I ka la popo. A laila no ka la o puka mai I 11 minuke I hala ka hola e ono o ka wana'au a laila nā po'o ka la I 6 minuke I hala ka hola e ono o ke ahiahi. Ke kai piha lua kiko kahi kapua'i I 2.5 minuke I koikani ka hola e hā o ke awina la a laila aia ke kai 'emi kiko 5 kapua'i I 3 minuke I koikani ka hola 'umi o ke kakahiaka. No laila ka mana'o ma ka mana'o Hawai'i e hā pomahina piha I ka mama no laila akua hoku mahea lani a me kulu no laila like ka mana'o o ka lawai'a maika'i ka lawai'a a laila like ka mana'o o ka mahi ai no laila maika'i ke kanu ana I ka mea kanu a pau no keia mau pomahina. Oia wale no, mahalo I ko ho'olohe ana mai I ka Moonlight Lady me ka hua na'auao o ka mahina.
Mahalo nui e ka hua na'auao o ka mahina e ka Moonlight Lady. Mahalo. No leila, let's head to our international segment to the South China Sea with Cookie.
Aloha, good morning everyone, welcome. So my first article that I'm going to talk about the South China Sea, Manila and Beijing agreed to shelf dispute, ambassador says. China and the Philippines have agreed to shelf their dispute over the South China Sea according to the Chinese ambassador to Manila, who spoke mere days after the Philippine President Duarte won praise from critics for vowing before the United Nations General Assembly to uphold a 2016 arbitration award that had invalidated many of Beijing's controversial maritime claims. So how this is tied into the Hawaiian Kingdom, in 2016, South China Seas had a tribunal and they referenced the Larson versus Hawaiian Kingdom at the at the arbitration in The Hague. And so this is key. Now, this case solidifies or acknowledges that the Hawaiian Kingdom is in continuity. And so I'm going to bring in KP to share some of his mana'o regarding this. What do you think about that, KP?
Well, this is it's a very important case, and let me kind of like go back and talk about how the Lance Larson's versus the Hawaiian Kingdom case ended up in The Hague. Well, you had Lance Larson, who was a Hawaiian subject, and he was actually following the Hawaiian Constitution, where it states that the only island that needs some sort of license, operator's license, was on Oahu. But he actually lived on Big Island, and he took off his occupier's license plate, safety checks, all of that. And while doing so, he was getting arrested numerous times, and he was thrown into jail. And after that, the case actually started in Moko'ikeawe, and then it ended up in The Hague. I believe it was 1999 to 2000. And the outcome was in The Hague is that the continuity of the Hawaiian Kingdom still exists. And you had that case at The Hague, and like 2016, that's the end result. They actually referenced the Larson versus Hawaiian Kingdom case as part of the arbitration. Yeah, and it extended to now its precedence in The Hague and other future international cases.
Wow, awesome, KP. Cookie, any last parting notes about this case?
Yeah, just that, we all got to remember, if you really want to learn the truth based on facts, go to our site, hawaiiankingdomnow.com. We have the articles in its entirety. And also, for your first reference, go to Hawaiian Kingdom blog. It has everything. And I know throughout every week we try to share what is so important. Our treaties was shared by Kumukini a few weeks ago. And this article back in 2016 just solidifies that they took the Lance Larson versus Hawaiian Kingdom case and used it in this tribunal. So just be mindful. Don't listen to what everybody tell you. Do your due diligence and research, and you'll find the truth.
So from mainland China down to Hong Kong. Hong Kong deploys thousands of police against protesters on Thursday. Demonstrators marked China's National Day with flash mobs in defiance of new security laws. So everybody knows what's happening in Hong Kong, right? It's moving back over to control by the mother country, China, or some say the occupying country, China, on China's National Day. Large, humongous, numerous amounts of people jam into the streets in Hong Kong in protest of these lockdowns and national security, stopping people from going to the beach, stopping people from doing regular things, and making it seem like Hong Kong's democracy is slowly disintegrating or disappearing. So a 27-year-old teacher says, we still want democracy, and we still need freedom, and we still want our Hong Kong. So, tensions in Hong Kong is high right now, where even journalists and newscasters are being thrown into jail and are being told what they can share on the news and what they cannot share on the news. This brings me back to what's his name? The father of modern day China. Sun Yat-sen,
Sun Yat-sen,
you know,
yeah.
Sun Yat-sen son came to the Hawaiian Kingdom, learned about democracy in the Hawaiian Kingdom, and took democracy back to China, where in Hong Kong it was allowed to flourish. And the people there still want democracy. So why don't you return to the Hawaiian Kingdom, set us free, and we can help set you guys free. Auntie Cookie, any last comments on what's happening over there in Hong Kong before we jump over to the South Pacific?
No, just pay attention to international news and connect it to the Hawaiian Kingdom.
Mahalo for that laser type focus on international news and the Hawaiian Kingdom, because you are confused with the current mainstream news that's being put out by the major sources today: the Honolulu Star Advertiser, Big Island Video News, West Hawaii Today, Hilo Tribune. You know, all of these, they push this false narrative that this is not the Hawaiian Kingdom. So this is the pushback. And now let's move on over to the South Pacific, to Bougainville. KP.
Aloha. Our top story is out of Papua New Guinea, and it's Bougainville communities file human rights complaint over Panguna. Communities in Papua New Guinea's autonomous Bougainville communities had filed a human rights complaint against Rio Tinto over the destruction caused by the Pangua mine. So this mine, when they actually created this mine in Bougainville, it actually starts off a firestorm and also civil war in 1989. And the end result of this copper mine is that you have toxic waste throughout, the surface of the mine and also in the mine itself. So the communities in Papua New Guinea, they have filed a complaint with the Australian government and to actually seek remedies on this situation. And as you can see, in the South Pacific, due to a limited finances, by smaller government, they go and they team up with corporations, but at the end of the day, they lose out, because the end result is that the corporation leaves, and what you have is toxic wastelands that you cannot use.
Amazing how these corporations just come into our small little island nations, take all of our gold and copper, and they leave all the rubbish behind, and they don't clean up their mess. It's just unbelievable. This has been happening in the Pacific for over a century.
Oh, yeah.
These guys got to get out, clean up their rubbish before they leave. And I'm sorry that the native people over there also have to suffer.
And you can even look in our own backyard, because you have the Poakaloa training area, you have the impact, area, you have, ammunition, you have everything just littered on the Aina. So for us, it's ongoing for, over 127 years.
And now the South Pacific is moving forward, and kudos to New Caledonia and the efforts in their legislature and government right now. KP should shed a little light on the movements forward that they're making in New Caledonia.
Okay, so on the New Caledonia front, New Caledonia parties propose foreign buyer law ban. So New Caledonia's pro-independence party want to ban foreigners from buying real estate. And I think it's really good that they're pushing to ban foreigners from obtaining land in the South Pacific, because it's an ongoing situation throughout the South Pacific, as the Chinese tries to buy up a lot of land throughout Polynesia itself, and we need to actually continue to control our Aina and our resources.
Awesome headline news for New Caledonia. New Caledonia. Auntie Cookie, shed some Hawaiian Kingdom light on this situation and then their law to ban foreigners from buying land.
Yeah, I think wouldn't that be awesome if we could do that? I mean, ban those foreigners, and how much foreigners get out there coming here for 127 years plus? I can name the Pake, the Portuguese, right? I mean, I'm not trying to, call them out, but who majority owns lots of the properties, the coastline along Mokuokeawe, these hotels? Look into who owns that. But most of them is all foreigners.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
And you know, in some situation, you have actually foreigners coming into Hawaii. They're buying out the coastline, and what's happening is they're gating up access to actually get into the kai for us to go, and gather, resources that we have done for over 1,000
Right, our
years.
gathering rights are taken away because they put gates up and they lock us out when we have rights, yeah?
Yes.
To do that.
Yeah, so I think it's really good that in the South Pacific they're trying to pass law, stating that foreigners should never own property, and I also believe in Aotearoa. They also have laws preventing foreigners to actually purchase property, and the biggest concern in Aotearoa is the Chinese, and also in Australia they're buying up large tract of farmland. And what they're doing is that they're buying the farmlands, and they're, all their goods, instead of actually selling them within Australia, is they sending them back to China.
Wow. I just had a comment here by Tita Muriel, who's a school teacher. She just said Chinese investors do the same for the Caribbean islands.
I mean, it's far-reaching because
Yeah.
you can even look in Africa. They're in Africa too, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so they're
Imagine
buying
that.
up a lot of properties around, and because they're limited within China. They have like over a billion people, and they have limited resources. So now they're going out buying properties around the world, is to actually send back the resources back to the homeland. Yeah.
Open your eyes, expand your mind at Hawaiian Kingdom Now, overseeing news around the world and how it applies to the Hawaiian Kingdom. Awesome, you guys. Now let's jump on over all the way across the Pacific from New Caledonia to New Zealand. KP, what's happening in New Zealand?
All right. In New Zealand, increases support for Pacific language projects. So the New Zealand government says it will provide more support for Pacific language projects. So basically, in Aotearoa, you have a lot of South Pacific Islanders living within, Aotearoa. And it's really good that the government in Aotearoa is actually supporting the various languages and cultures within Aotearoa. So I think it's really great that you have an initiative of the government helping with languages, and spearheading that. It's very important to actually obtain your language. Doesn't matter where you come from, the South Pacific, is that you need to know your language.
Great Britain, France, America, Germany, China, Japan, all of these imperialist countries came into the Pacific in the last century and basically genocided all of the native peoples from speaking their languages. So we need to support efforts like these that supports the revitalization and the usage of Pacific language projects. Auntie Cookie, how important is it for Hawaiians to speak Hawaiian to understand the Hawaiian Kingdom?
Oh, it's key. It's our first language. Even I retaining Hawaiian language as I go along, learning from Kumukini, and there's so many resources out there for us to learn. Simply reading and learning our Hawaiian language it's progress for all of us, because for a time there, we almost lost it. It was taken away from us. So learn your Hawaiian language every single day. Get a book, read it, go online, do an audible, listen to it, and get used to it.
Oh yes, you know, because like okay, so if you look at like Aotearoa, yeah, so they have initiatives of actually people obtaining their native tongue. Well, back home in the kingdom under the U.S. occupation, you don't see initiatives, of actually promoting the native tongue. So we, as individuals, yeah, in the occupied states, we need to take the initiative. We cannot just sit back and blame the occupiers. We need to actually, stand up and actually take initiatives and learn our language.
Good point. Good point. When you point one finger away, you have three
Oh,
fingers
yes.
pointed back at you.
Yes,
So
yes.
unless you have three more excuses than the
Right.
other guy,
Yeah.
remember, Kako, pono oi e holomua. Do your best. Move forward, one word at a time. That's all it takes. After a year, you have 356 words, and you'll be well on your way,
Yes.
Kako.
Yes.
Mahalo, KP and Cookie, for that South Pacific segment. And now we're going to jump over to our favorite, or my favorite, senator, Representative Tulsi Gabbard, who made the headlines in Honolulu Civil Beat. And it's titled, Gabbard Calls for Charges Against Edward Snowden to Be Dropped. This isn't the first time the Hawaii Congresswoman has urged the federal government to dismiss its case against the whistleblower. So, I don't know if you guys remember, just a few weeks, Tulsi Gabbard came to the Hawaiian Kingdom and exposed the small, tiny amounts of contact tracers when the whistleblower came out and said, they're lying. They don't have that much contact tracers. And then the next day, you see them in the convention center with hundreds of computers for contact tracing. So here she goes again, supporting the whistleblower, but this time it's a national security whistleblower. KP, you got something to share? Shine some light on Snowden?
Okay, so since all of this stuff developed actually in Hawaii on Oahu. So Snowden was actually working within a secured area, and he was an analyst, and he was looking at this whole situation because basically they're supposed to have actually monitor terrorists. And when he was looking into it further, there was actually looking at the surveillance of everyone. And he thought it wasn't right. So what he did is that, he took some of the information with him and he left Hawaii. Yeah. And he actually exposed the United States of actually, overstepping and like watching everyone like a paranoid person. And so, eventually he ended up in Russia. Today he's there. But the thing is, he's a whistleblower, and he's supposed to be protected, not labeled as a criminal.
So just think, before you blow that whistle, retaliation is going to come.
Oh, yes.
I don't care what anybody says, but you're not protected.
You're not.
I mean, that's the truth.
No, but even look in Hawaii's situation with the what you call now, the COVID-19. The whistleblower, right? Then afterwards, they actually dismiss her from her work.
Yeah, crazy.
Yes.
But we need it. It keeps the world at balance, so that these power mongers, these power hungry corporations, governments can stay in their lane and stop stepping over everyone else and stepping into everyone else's home. Because right here, Snowden, he was charged with espionage and other crimes by the federal government for leaking the information.
Yeah.
Gabbard and Representative Geitz have introduced a resolution in the House asking for those charges to be dropped. Now, if we cannot protect whistleblowers, what message are we saying? Are we saying that if you blow the whistle, you're going to go to jail? If you blow the whistle, we're going to have to excommunicate you to another country? Come on, Kako. We need to make the highest level of protections for our whistleblowers so they can continue coming out to share with us the secretive nature of the colonialism and imperialism and the power control that these governments, corporations continue to strangle us with without us even knowing. So I just gotta applaud Tulsi Gabbard for bringing this up. And yes, we should drop all charges on Snowden, and we should set him free so that he can blow the whistle some more, because that's what we need. But Auntie Cookie, how is the Hawaiian Kingdom how are we gonna be blowing our whistle on our situation over here following Edward Snowden on Auntie
So,
Cookie?
if you don't remember, a few years ago, Jennifer Ruggles, she's the first county state official who became our whistleblower. So she actually is our first whistleblower for the Hawaiian Kingdom, where she sent letters to everyone. And later on, when I'm going to talk about my words of today, there's one word that I want everyone to be mindful and learn. So that segment is coming up soon. But Jennifer Ruggles, remember now, she's a whistleblower and she's protected. So yeah.
Mahalo for that one, Cookie, because when I tried to go back and look for Jennifer Ruggles' website, I couldn't find it. I was looking for the 342 pages that was submitted by her lawyer, Stephen Laude.
Yes.
And I couldn't find it online.
Yeah.
So mahalo for reminding all of us of our champion whistleblower, county councilwoman, Jennifer Ruggles, bringing to light the truth about the Hawaiian Kingdom, and everyone's still ignoring her.
Yes.
Right, KP?
Yeah, I mean, we should actually have a Jennifer Ruggles Day as a reminder that we have people out there, non-Kanaka, who supports the Hawaiian Kingdom, and to expose the 127 years of U.S. occupation in the kingdom.
Well, it's happening right here, right now at Hawaiian Kingdom now, October 3rd, Jennifer Ruggles Day for blowing the whistle. You have your day, Jennifer Ruggles.
Ruggles
right
Day.
here, right now. Hawaiian Kingdom now. Let's get it, Kako. Okay. Mahalo for our national section. And, I just got to mention another part of the national news that's been taking over the world is President Trump. He got, after that ridiculous debate.
It was like on cat fight.
It seemed like it was third graders, second graders, and they were just talking above each other, and it was just egregious and shame. Hila. For even watch, I couldn't even watch that whole thing because I just wanted to give those kids one timeout and send them back to the counselor. Those guys wasn't listening. So I gotta mention that, and all the way to like the timing of the debate and President Trump catching COVID is just mind blowing. But I think something else is happening. What do you think is happening, KP?
On the whole situation.
Yeah, what's happening with our president debate and catching COVID now? What's really happening?
If you look at the whole situation, it's like it's like two cartoon characters, and to me, it's like the whole world is watching, and it's like, so one of them is going to be the U.S. president, and so how is this going to affect the whole world? Because we had one term with Trump, and they know the situation of he actually burning bridges with the international community, and on the other hand, you have Biden, and probably he's only going to be in there for a short time before the his vice president, will take over as president. So, to me, it's like it's you don't know. You don't know the outcome. So, with the situation of who becomes president, it's going to really affect the world. Yeah.
Right, and we got to remember now that here in the Hawaiian Kingdom, it doesn't matter who becomes president of the United States. That person, him, will
Or her.
will inherit the ongoing illegal occupation of our Hawaiian Kingdom government. So just remember that, okay? Lahui, remember that. It really doesn't matter who becomes president, they'll inherit this illegal occupation. And that's one thing that, don't separate yourself. Stay within the means and bounds of the Hawaiian Kingdom. Know who you are, where you belong, where you stand, and don't separate yourself. I see a lot of division because of this election going on, and what I saw was two old guys that I would wanted to give boxing gloves to. Just fight it out. That's America for you, right?
I thought one of them was going to have a heart attack on stage.
Throw them in the octagon.
Oh, yeah.
Throw them in the octagon. Let everybody watch that, because that's what we was witnessing. Two little girlies fighting over their pretty girly doll. And, that's a shame for the rest of the world.
Yes.
To view this, to see this Kit Kat back and forth, word for word, just disrespectful for leaders of one of the most wealthiest, well, we think is the most wealthiest country, but certainly not with respect, certainly not with dignity. If you want to see a political race that's happening with some dignity and some, aloha for one another, I just got to point you to the Hawaii County Mayor's race, just to see a foreigner, Mitch Roth, and a Hawaiian Kingdom subject go at it respectfully and with dignity. Makes me feel so good that at least I'm from Hawaii County and not from America, because I'd be ashamed to see my leaders argue like that in a debate. So terrible. So that concludes our national segment of our news. Now we're going to head to our local segment with Cookie and your favorite site of desecration on Hawaii Island.
Yeah, so the Army Training Land Retention at Puhakuloa is, they're asking for public input. Every one of us needs to submit. Go to the link that's posted. It's on our site. Send in your comments, because we all are hearing and feeling these vibrations. I live Hamakua, and I can feel when they're bombing in Pohakuloa. Imagine that. That's nuts, and it affects all of us. So send your comments in, because they need to hear from the people how wrong this is. And I know that we have Auntie Maxine and Uncle Ku that have been fighting this particular situation for a long time. And so, yeah, send your comments in to that, and let's stop that heva. Those lands are precious to us, right, KP?
Oh, yes. And, it's good to actually send testimony, because we can use the testimony as evidence for war crimes against the U.S. occupier as a desecration of our Aina.
355,000 acres continue to be bombed, maimed, destroyed on the land that Keakua trusted into Hawaiians to take care of. But I'm sorry, Kako. The U.S. military is just too big, and they're too strong. But we asked you since 1893 to stop desecrating and bombing our sacred islands in the middle of the Pacific. So, terrible, terrible, terrible. Send in your testimony now for the Hawaiian Kingdom now. Next article. Big Island now wrongful death lawsuit filed over one COVID fatality at Hilo Veterans Home against the Utah-based Avalon Healthcare Group and its 4 affiliates. Dreyer, who was 70, who passed away, and attorney Jeffrey Foster, who filed the lawsuit on behalf of their his children, who reportedly tested positive on August 31st and died on September 2nd, where 27 other residents who died in the facility passed away. So all of you other 27 residents who passed away, if you can hear us now, if you're go to Big Island now, go and get Jeffrey Foster, the attorney's number, and reach out to him so you can jump on this lawsuit and make it a class action lawsuit, because none of the veterans who fought in very dangerous wars and survived and then comes home in their old age to die in a care facility run by these guys. That's just unbelievable. I have a hard time thinking about how they survived through Vietnam, Korea, and
Desert
Iraq,
Storm, yes.
Desert Storm, and many
Afghanistan.
other areas. Crazy. And then now you have to die in a veteran's home. KP, please shed some light on the egregious things that happen.
When people, they are patriotic and they go and they serve in their country and the sacrifices, and it's sad that when they come home, it's substandard, So basically, it's like a contract when you join the military, yeah? And so for vets, they fulfilled their contract. And when they come home, the government does not fulfill their side. So they have all substandard, medical care, housing, and all that stuff. So, it's a really sad situation when you have a lot of homeless vets and stuff like that.
Auntie Cookie, you want to shed some light on that?
Yeah, it's just none of this should have happened, and that those 27, those lives are on Harry Kimchi's watch, and all of that could have been avoided. All of their life could have been lived out comfortably in the veterans home, and we lost those lives. And so reach out to Jeffrey Foster and the families of those that passed away, and see if you can do a class action lawsuit, because this is wrong, so wrong in so many ways. And it's just I have a hard time talking about it because it's heavy. It's it's very hard.
Mahalo. Now, rounding out our last section before we head home, athletics. KP?
Okay, the first news segment is out of Aotearoa. Sanzar reneges on getting All Blacks home for Christmas. So basically, the All Blacks, they're in a conference, and also they're supposed to have a series of rugby matches in Australia, and so the sanction party kind of told them, okay, you guys can go home during the Christmas break, and now that they found out that Sanzar has reneged on the deal, and they can't go home until the new year. So, it's really sad because a lot of these rugby players, they have families, and they don't want to be away from the families too long. And so they thought they was going to be home in time for the Christmas break, but with this breaking news, they're not going to be. So some of them actually they're considering of not even going to play with in Australia.
Oh yeah, poor thing. We need our families back home for Christmas. Mahalo KP for that one. Now let's move on to Super Rugby 2021.
All right. So Super Rugby Aotearoa back for 2021. New Zealand will reprise the domestic Super Rugby Aotearoa competition in 2021 with no Australian or Pacific Island teams involved. The chairman of the national government, body stated today. So the Super Rugby is only teams that actually they're actually within Aotearoa, and like so like the old competition of the Super Rugby, you had various teams, within the South Pacific and also Australia. But I think because of the COVID-19 situation, they're just going to have an like internal Super Rugby competition, and that's the news. The South Pacific sports news for this Saturday. Aloha.
Mahalo, KP, for keeping us updated with our South Pacific cousins and our South Pacific news. And now for your morsels of cookies of knowledge, we're going to Auntie Cookie's Corner for the words of the day.
Okay, so I've selected two very important words or definitions of the day. The first is laws of occupation. The law administered by the occupying government within the territory of an occupied country or of state, which includes the national laws of the occupying country of state, that the international laws that regulate occupations, i.e. 1907 Hague Regulations and the 1949 Geneva Convention. And so if you go to Hawaiian Kingdom now, it has from the International Committee of the Red Cross, the ICRC, it has occupation. It has a series of questions and answers of how a legal team on what defines occupation. And so go to our page, read it. It's so important that every single one of us as Hawaiian subjects, Hawaiian nationals, understand the laws of occupation and how it applies to us and what will happen when we transition back to the Hawaiian Kingdom government. It's so important. And also you can refer, which is also on our page, from the Hawaiian Kingdom blog, the difference between occupation and colonization. It's so important that we understand the difference. And so go to our page to read that article in its entirety. And the second word, which is really, really important that we understand this word, it's mens rea. Mens rea refers to a criminal intent. The literal translation from Latin is a guilty mind. The plural of mens rea is mentes rea. A mens rea refers to the state of mind statutorily required in order to convict particular defendants of a particular crime. So I'm going to give you one example that I participated in, and because I was there, we, meaning representatives from the Regency, the Hawaiian Kingdom, the acting Hawaiian Kingdom government, Dr. Keanu Sai sat with myself and two other people with Mayor Harry Kim, mayor-elect at the time, giving him this information of the illegal occupation. And we sat with him for 5 hours. And he walked away knowing the criminal intent that he was walking away with. So when the time comes and this tribunal happens, he will be called upon and he will be asked, did you know that the Hawaiian Kingdom was illegally occupied? And if he says yes, we have documentation of him sitting at a conference getting educated of the ongoing illegal occupation. So that's just one example that I'll give of that. So what you guys think, KP, DJ Derbs, about this mens reas?
Well, I mean, if you look around, a lot of government officials, when I talk about government officials, the occupying government, they know about the situation, and they know about international law. They know about the U.S. occupation, but they still commit war crimes by using U.S. law and the so-called fake state law.
Right, and remember now, a few weeks ago I talked about war crimes, and there's no statute of limitation on war crimes, right, KP?
No, and it's so true because, I think it was like a few months ago, they actually indicted and actually captured a German who was actually, he committed war crimes, and now he's going to be put on trial, and I believe he's like 87 or 88 years old. So that's a classic case that you cannot run away from crime, especially war crimes.
Mens rea. When I think about that, I only can think of that one word. Yeah. And I think you guys can make the connection with what I'm thinking when you go to that throne of yours, in that small, quiet little place.
Yeah.
But, all I can remember is the letters that Dr. Sai sent out. I think it was in 2014 or 2016 to the governor, attorney general, U.S. Pacific Command. Well, that was the first one, I think, many years earlier. And then Jennifer Ruggles, she comes out. She sends letters to all of the government officials, representatives, senators in the state of Hawaii, and the judges. And then Dr. Desaias comes out with another list of letters from the UN,
Right.
Castanetti, Judge Chang, and after receiving multiple letters, and then understanding in the letter stating that this is the Hawaiian Kingdom, and then still they choose to ignore it, they choose to avoid it, they choose to not refer to it, but move forward in their daily criminal actions of human rights violations. So when you say mens rea, I'm thinking, okay, he's a Hawaiian Kingdom violator, and the Hawaiian Kingdom prosecution or for committing treason is the death penalty.
Yes.
Yes.
So when I think mens rea, treason, death penalty, I'm like, oh my G.
Yeah.
Because I just hate to see the streets lined up with these guys, with the multiple attempts of communicating to these guys.
Yes, because if you look at the Hawaiian Kingdom, the Constitution, under treason, you only need two Hawaiian subjects to file a complaint.
Yep.
Yes.
So there you have it, Kako. That's going to end our segment of Cookie's words of wisdom and knowledge. Mens rea, you going to jail, you criminals, and on a violation of Hawaiian Kingdom treason law, which the penalty is, and now I understand why, Dr. Sai says education first. Education,
Oh, yes.
It's
education.
key.
Because
Yeah.
when these laws come into the stage of prosecution, there's going to be a lot of hurt families.
And a lot of confusion.
People and a lot of
Yeah.
confusion.
So, to prepare yourself is just get educated.
Get educated.
Don't get in the line of fire, but educate yourself.
So stay tuned to Hawaiian Kingdom Now. We'll be interviewing Keli'i Akina
Oh, yeah.
tomorrow night. And then I think we're going to get Lana Kila back on Monday night to finish his portion, because we didn't even get to the Hawaiian Kingdom in his one yet. And then Luana Alapa coming up for the week.
All right.
And then
Right
we're going
on.
to get hopefully the county mayor's race, and we're going to have to address these issues about the Hawaiian Kingdom and mens rea, these buggers. You got a mens rea everywhere.
Yeah. Just try to blank it out.
So join us for those interviews at night for the mens rea actions on all of them. So now to our last, second to the last segment, Hawaiian Kingdom champion, Hawaiian Kingdom violator, and I'll just volunteer to go first. My Hawaiian Kingdom champion gotta be Tulsi Gabbard for supporting whistleblowers in the Hawaiian Kingdom within the corporate state of Hawaii framework to mahalo Snowden for blowing the whistle. Mahalo Tulsi for supporting Snowden. So he's my Hawaiian Kingdom champion. Stop looking at all of our data, NSA, and stop looking at us as criminals. So that's my Hawaiian Kingdom champion for the week. Tikuki.
My champion for this week is Dr. David Kianusai. For many reasons, but you know what? Just because of him pretty much 20 plus years doing what he do and still getting arrows thrown at him. And that's my Hawaiian Kingdom hero for today.
KP.
All right. For today, I actually have two heroes. One is Lono Lyman, and also Ku'ule Kealoha Cooper. These are actually large Kanaka landowners in Puna who are actually, they're actually standing up and, saying that we need to preserve the Puna coast. We need to preserve our sacred sites in the Iwi Kupuna. So these two individuals are my actually my heroes.
So, out to our last section, Makahana Ka'ike. So my Makahana Ka'ike for this week is mens rea. Go out, find that government official, serve them Jennifer Ruggles letters, 342 pages, take a video, post it on Hawaiian Kingdom Now, and just say mens rea. Mens rea. Let's make that a common word in our vocabulary that shares the explicit criminal intent of government officials after we give them the education that they need so that they will be held liable, Kako. They'll be held liable if they don't seek the justice. So that's my Makahana Ka'ike for the week. Mens rea. Auntie Cookie.
I got a kako, DJ Derbs. You know what? I never thought that my words of the day would be so popular. I just want to aloha everyone I got so many messages on Messenger, on Facebook, and Instagram too, which I'm hardly ever on, wanting to talk more about the words of the day. And I really appreciate everybody going to the site. But you gotta subscribe. We gotta get more subscription on our page. And so I kako mens rea with DJ Derbs. What you think, KP? What is yours?
I triple.
Triple.
And then simply because, we need to educate ourselves, and we need to understand international law and the terminology, because these laws actually protect us. Even if you don't know what laws protect us under the international, realm, we need to, study and understand the definition of each word that actually protects us.
Triple the value, triple the intent, triple the mens rea.
Yeah.
Get it out, all you Hawaiian Kingdom supporters out there. Get it out there now. Let's mens rea everybody throughout this week. So without any further ado, let's provide the solution of mens rea. And that's how we close out our episodes every week, is singing together our Hawaiian Kingdom national anthem, composed by King Kalakaua in 1874 for his coronation as the king of the Hawaiian Kingdom. 3 verses. Hawaii pono'i, makaukau, kuiluna ai, a oya.
Au e nā li e o ke au I hala. E nāna mai a mākou nā pula pula o nei au e holo nei. E ala mai kākou e nā kini nā mamo ka aina aloha. Aloha wale ia aina o kākou kahua. Au e ka ili e ka hopu eu ia nei. E pai pai hou ia ka pohaku I paa maila ke kahua hale hou. No kākou e nā pua e ho lulu ai. E ala e ka I, ka mahi, ka palena. I mua aloa a ka lei o ka lana kila.